Hi, this is Janelle from Crowded Table Farmstead, and today we are going to be making chicken enchilada soup, or just taco soup is what we call it here. This is a family favorite in our house, and on these cold winter days, it's nice to have a pot of soup ready on the stove when it's dinner time. We've got basketball tonight, so we always try and get dinner around before we leave so that it's just kind of hot and ready and waiting for us when we get home a little later in the evening. So if you're interested in this recipe, stay tuned.
So the first thing that we need to do to get this started is to chop half of an onion. I'm just using a yellow onion here, but white will also work. I've got about a tablespoon or two of olive oil in the bottom of my pan. And we'll just start the soup with an onion. All my soups seem to start with an onion. I'm not really a huge onion fan as far as raw onion. I like onion rings and things like that, but you just can't beat the flavor that you get from chopping an onion in the bottom of your soup pot. I only put half in. You could put the whole thing in, really, it's your preference. This recipe is really customizable to the flavors that you like. Next, I got a few garlic cloves. Again, you could completely leave this out and just use some garlic salt or garlic powder. I like to chop fresh garlic. Just give each one of them a whack and the peels will fall right off. And you can chop them up. I do have a garlic press that I use once in a while, but it's kind of a pain to clean out. So tonight I just opted to chop it all up. It cooks down pretty quickly in the soup pot, so the larger chunks here aren't really a big deal. It gives good flavor. You could also buy a jar of like pre-minced garlic that is stored in oil. I have a jar of that in my fridge, and if I'm short on time, sometimes I'll just grab a spoonful of that out if I need garlic to saute in a recipe. And it all goes in the pot. I've got this over about medium heat to saute, and you just want to saute that up for 2-3 minutes until the flavors start to come out and your onion is a little translucent. Next, I poured in a quart of beef broth. You could use chicken broth too, I just had beef broth on hand. A large, I think 32-ounce can of tomato sauce. And then a can of like rotel, so just chopped tomatoes with chilies. And that is the base. Oh, I also put in some pepper jelly. I'll kind of explain a little later about that, but this is my jalapeno. You could use chopped jalapeno in here, and you probably should use chopped jalapeno in here, but I'm trying to use this up. We like our soup pretty spicy. This is really hot, so this is me trying to decide whether I want 1 scoop or 2. And I went for 2. We like spice around here. Eventually I do add another cup or 2 of water once it simmers down. Stir it all up. And I turned it up just a little bit so that it would sort of start to boil. Now it's time for the spices. This is where it gets good and taco-y. So you can see my precise measuring here. About 3 tablespoons of cumin. And about 2 tablespoons of chili powder. You could also use a can of actual enchilada sauce in this recipe, and I do usually when I have it on hand. I just didn't have it today, so I kind of upped the taco seasoning because I didn't have the enchilada sauce, but enchilada sauce would give good flavor too. And then I just put in about 2 teaspoons of salt. This recipe is really forgiving and adaptable to what you have on hand. If you want the full printable recipe, you can find that at crowdedtablefarmstead.com. So now I'm putting in a can of black beans. I did rinse that a little bit just in the can. And then a bag of frozen corn. You could add 2 cans of beans to bulk it up a little more. My family doesn't really love beans, so 1 can is just perfect for us. And then at this point, I like to taste for seasoning. Make sure the spice level's good. Make sure we don't need any additional salt. It's just right.
So we have everything in the pot besides the chicken now. What I put in place of the jalapenos was actually some hot pepper jelly that I canned a couple summers ago actually, and it's really hot and we just have had a hard time wanting to eat it. I pictured us eating it like over cream cheese with crackers, and it's just kind of really hot for the majority of us. So I'm just gonna start kind of using this as my jalapenos, and I think it'll add just the perfect kick to this enchilada soup. So the next thing that I'm gonna do is put the chicken in. I just have chicken tenderloins here that have been thawed, and I'm just gonna dump them right into the simmering soup, and they will cook pretty quickly, probably 10-15 minutes. And I'm actually gonna leave them in there while we go to basketball. I'm gonna shut the stove off and just leave the lid on so it stays good and hot, but I'm just gonna kind of let them set in there, and then once we get back from basketball, I'm going to take them all out, shred them all up, and put the meat back into the soup so that it's distributed throughout.
So next I'm going to get our toppings around for the soup. I'm going to shred up a block of white cheddar cheese. I really like to shred my cheese off a block rather than buying the shredded in a bag. The bag has coatings of things that I'd like to avoid if all possible, so shredding it is. Plus it melts so much nicer into the soup. I've got cheddar cheese. I'm going to put it in a bowl over here so that we can just grab it out when we get home. And then I'm also going to chop up some cilantro. That was Mom's piece of cheese. Mom always gets the end piece that you have to cut off to open the bag. It's my little treat. So just a little handful of cilantro. We like the freshness and the little flavor kick it gives to the soup. I'm really excited to have fresh herbs in the garden this year. That's going to be one of my goals, is to do better at preserving herbs for the winter. So now that our cilantro is all chopped and our cheese is shredded, and we've got our toppings ready, and I'll just pop this in the fridge so that we can dip out of it when we get home. I'm also going to open up a half a block of cream cheese. I'm going to throw this in the soup when we get home too, to kind of turn it into a creamy chicken enchilada soup. This is a good way to sort of cool it off and give it that creaminess, or you could just put a dollop of sour cream on as a topping. Either way is delicious. I just want to have that open and ready to drop in when we get home. Okay, let's stir the soup a little bit here and see how we're coming. It looks so delicious. See those big chunks of chicken in there, those tenderloins that we just threw in to cook in the soup. I'm going to kind of grab one and cut it in half to make sure that it's cooked through, and it is. So we're off to basketball.
Okay, so we are back from basketball, and I took all the chicken pieces out, and you can see how easily they're just shredding right up. And once I get it all broken up for the most part, I will just dump it back in and stir it around. Throw that block of cream cheese, half a block of cream cheese. I don't always do the cream cheese. This time I decided that I was gonna make it a creamy chicken tortilla soup. So the cream cheese is there, but I often leave that out. Okay, back in the soup it goes.
This was such a delicious, welcoming meal when we got home from basketball. You could top this with pico, guacamole, avocado. One of our favorite toppings is crunched up tortilla chips.
I hope you enjoyed learning my recipe for chicken enchilada soup. I hope it comes in handy for your family. It's really an easy, quick, dump and go recipe, quick for a weeknight, and it's a good healthy option. Lots of veggies and protein packed in there, and it's really kid friendly in our house anyways. We are taco lovers of any sort, so anything with a Mexican flair is good for my crew, so they really yum this one up. If you enjoyed this video, I would love it if you would like it and subscribe to my channel. I'll be getting out more recipe tutorials, DIYs, and if you'd like to follow along on our farm journey, we would love to have you. Thanks for stopping by our crowded table.